welcome to another great episode of The Sound of Orange. Here with me, Diego, and Matt, as you know. So, last week's topics hopefully were educational and very fun and very helpful, and we're hoping to keep the ball rolling by continuing great topics as always. Today's topics is nutrition for business professionals. Now, Matt and I are going to give our ideas of what nutrition can, like giving advice and guidelines and things like that. But also, as you know, we're not registered dietitians, but we're going to give our best opinions of what we think is best for people in at least the corporate fitness world, just from our point of view. So, Matt, when you think about nutrition, at least for the business professional, what ideas pop up the most that are like, oh, this is what probably is the most things that are needed for people of
Yeah,
the corporate world?
I think the most important thing is the way that we look at nutrition and the way that we view food. When you think about instead of it just being a thing that you need to do to kind of get you through the day, it's like, no, like, you are a performer and you need fuel to perform. And food is exactly that. It is fuel. So if you, without talking about even macros or what to eat or the right thing, if you think about it from the standpoint of, is the thing that I'm about to eat going to help me or hurt me and what my goals are? Whether it's I want better cognition, whether it's how I feel, whether it's how I perform, is this thing going to do that for me? And I think once you start looking at food through that lens, it really helps you narrow down on what exactly we should be taking in. And then kind of going through with, as we always should be doing, if we are eating something, how does it make us feel? How does our body respond to that? Because even though something might be good on paper, maybe our body doesn't have the greatest response to it. So those are things that I like to talk about with folks when they're approaching their nutrition. And then I'm going to go and I'll give some strategies in a minute that I'm really successful, that people have been successful with. But that lens right there really helps people a lot.
Yeah, and especially with that lens as well, where when to eat the foods that may when you throughout your day, because strategic of what to eat to fuel, but when to eat, when to be fueled, you know. So as everybody knows, I love eating my guilty pleasure foods. I do not shy away from eating my guilty pleasure foods, but when I eat them, depends throughout the day. Am I gonna spike my insulin right when I need to be focused in? Probably not, you know. I'm probably going to be more conscious of when I'm going to eat that. But if it's a late night, they're like, okay, now I probably have nothing else going on. I finished out my day. I'm having my sweet treat to relax it through. So a lot of it for me would be timing. So not only the fuel part, but when do we need our fuel, and when pick and choose of how to use it. If it's for performance, if it's for focus, all these other things that you do throughout the day. Especially for the corporate fitness or the corporate worker, they're always in the go, go, go type of day. You know, if they're not rushing to work or rushing to meetings here and there, when to eat is probably the biggest challenge I see for the people in corporate.
Yeah, it's all about preparation, and you have to be ready. Because here's the thing, right? You're going to eat every day. You're going to eat every day multiple times. When you're at a point where you can systematize this to a level where it is so efficient, just like anything else you might throughout your day, that's when you really reach the next level. So what do I mean by that? Like, I know exactly what I'm going to be eating next Tuesday because I've got a system in place. This way, you take all of that thinking fatigue out. Think about how much time. And everyone always tells, "Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time." Well, think about how much time you can save yourself if you know exactly what you're going to be eating. A week down the line, if you know exactly what your meals look like, whether it's even a day in advance, a week in advance, that's the kind of efficiency that high performers need. And it also, from a body composition standpoint, when you're eating those things, the same things, you know exactly how your body reacts to it. There's no independent variables here that can throw you off course. So it really is having the preparation ahead of time. If a lot of these people that work corporate, they'll do, here they have this thing called Menu Maven where it's delivery nonstop. That's no way to live. Like that's just going to lead you down a path of making not the best choice. And also, you're at the mercy of what the restaurant is cooking you, so you lose that control. So with nutrition, it's all about planning in advance, systematizing that, just like you would anything
Yeah.
else with your operations, and then from there it just becomes a piece of cake. Really, no pun intended.
Yeah, because I mean, those, although you think of them as like, oh, I'm restricting myself. No, those restrictions, I don't think of them as restrictions. Think about it as a controlled variable. Because yeah, that Minute app, or at our office, we have so many delivery apps. But because you have all those choices, now it becomes this big thing. Because as you're in a controlled environment, you only have A, B, and C to choose from. It's pretty simple. All right, which one I'm going to go with? Three. As for those apps that we have in our delivery system, you can. I always, if I open that up and I see the restaurant, it's like over 50 to 60. So all these options for all
Do
those
you guys
menus.
have Wonder by you? That Wonder restaurant?
We do not have Wonder by
It's
You.
like it's a place called Wonder, and it's like it's one of these ghost kitchens that has every single restaurant inside of it. So not only does the menu just for that restaurant, you've got like 10 different restaurants in this book. So you get that exactly what you're describing, that paradox of abundance. And it's like, oh, I'm eating something different every day. I don't know what to choose. And it's like, one, from a nutritional standpoint, it's not going to be great, but also from a time efficiency standpoint, it's not going to be great. So that is such a great point about limiting those variables. And I'm not saying that you limit yours. And you brought up a great point, and I really try to harp on this for folks. When I know exactly what I'm eating, it's not restricting, it's actually more freeing because now I have control over what I put in my body. This way, if I do step outside that scope of what I'm usually eating, one, I can see how my body reacts to it. And two, I know I can get right back on plan. When you jump off plan all the time and you don't really have one, you're flying blind, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want to do that with our training plan. We wouldn't want to do the same thing with our nutrition.
Yeah, and then one of the things is also for at least in our office, they have about maybe 30 minutes, an hour if they're lucky, but usually their time. So by the time going to grab your food, getting your food, eating your food, now that's even being rushed. So the digestion within that is also not friendly. So yeah, having those things planned to give yourself that extra time is very vital. And
Yeah.
then we get to the next point is the probably what happens and the benefits we get once we have those controlled environments set in place for us, the things that come with it, which is if it's not better performance, better mental focus, better outcomes throughout goals. So things like that, where people don't understand that could be a big part of the next stepping stone they're trying to do and trying to overcome.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think a lot of people, maybe it's just because of all the stuff they see on the internet and they overcomplicate it to the point where they don't know what to do. Where we really do have some evergreen principles that, if applied, everybody that follows them is successful. And those are going to be, eating single ingredient, healthful whole foods. We want to try to eliminate as many synthetic, chemicals as we can. I always tell people eat until satisfied, not full. Um, Now, this is a double-edged sword because, to your point, sometimes you have to eat quick, right? Because you don't have a ton of
Yeah.
time. So if you eat quick, you're not getting that signal to your brain that says, I'm done, right? Also, that's where pre-portioning stuff out makes a big difference. I don't know if some of these cafeterias might have buffet style, so you
Yes.
don't really get that portion, so that can be dangerous. Um, but also frequent feedings, I like. I don't like to think of food. I don't as breakfast, lunch, and dinners. Maybe meal one, meal two, depending on the person and what
Yeah.
their goals are. But a meal doesn't have to be just what we think of as like food. It could be a shake and maybe a thing of almonds, for healthy fats, and I've got my protein. That right there could be 200, 300, 400 calories, and that right there constitutes a meal. So that also can be something quick and efficient that everybody can use, whether it's one of those
Yeah.
Fairlife protein shakes. So if you have, let's say, 4 meals throughout the day, um, I call it the 4x4. So we do four
Yeah.
meals throughout the day, spread out about 4 hours apart. This way, you don't really have those hunger pains because by the time you start to get hungry, you've got another meal coming. But also, it gives you that sustained energy burst throughout the day. So
Yeah.
that's how I like to do it. Listen, everyone's got to find what works for them. For the type A type guy, I'm not a huge fan of intermittent fasting because
Mm.
a lot of those guys tend to be high cortisol in the morning, and we want to eat carbs in the morning to kind of blunt that. But you do have to find what works for you. But I will say, if someone finds himself sluggish all the time, they find themselves overweight, what they are doing is not working. So you do have to find an approach that obviously you can follow, but that is effective.
Yes, that's a great point. That most people do have to find something that works for them. And follow a plan for the individual, not follow the plan that's working for everyone.
Mhm.
Is usually what we try to preach when it comes to fitness, and as well, then we get to the scary words that you might have mentioned, like fats and carbs. Terrifying for most people. Easy when you talk about those, Matt. But one of the things is people also misunderstanding words such as that, like, oh, I don't want to eat carbs because it's a funny. I forget what movie it was, but he was like, "Carbs, yeah, carbs make you fat." That's what that movie was called. I think Scott Pilgrim versus the World, something like that. But I think about that movie and that quote because that's how people think about it most of the times when we talk about carbs and fats, and not knowing that these are also good and they're healthy if put in a good way and a good use. So, and this, I also want to make sure we let people know that when you're eating and when you're having your goals and you're having your meals, to not avoid every type of helpful ingredient such as good fats, carbs, and proteins. Most people just focus on that protein because right now social media is taking that protein. Everything has protein, nowadays. Just came out with protein Doritos. In
Oh
case
my
you didn't
God.
see, so like
Yeah, I mean,
everything
I,
has
I would
protein.
caution people to stay away from the Frankenfoods as much as possible. But listen, and people are like, they taste good. Yeah, they're designed to taste good. It's the point. Yeah, but yeah, and that I think is something to address where it's like, yes, protein is important and most people aren't getting enough. But at the same time, the other macronutrients have value, especially carbs. It's funny, every macronutrient, I guess, kind of has its moment. So for those of you, I guess we should just briefly
Yeah, I
go
was
through.
about to.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there's three macronutrients that when you look at the calorie count on the back of your food, it's broken down into basically three macronutrients. One being protein, one being carbs, and one being fat. And what you'll find is each one of those macronutrients has a certain caloric value. So, for example, every gram of protein is 4 calories. Every gram of carbs is 4 calories, and then every gram of fat is 9 calories, which is why foods that are high in fat are very high calories. Um, so just to give a little, context there. But it's funny because every macronutrient has its moment. Whether it was keto with the fat or whether now it's protein. Carbs. I think we're soon going to have their moment because people are realizing how good they feel and how important they are to the energy systems. And listen, anybody who does this for a long time, they find themselves probably coming back to that omnivorous Mediterranean diet where they're eating a little bit of everything. And I think that that's kind of the happy medium for most people. But I certainly wouldn't stray away from carbs. I would probably for most people maybe keep fats lower, and then I would definitely keep that protein in a moderate range. And when I say moderate range, the data tells us that anywhere around 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, somewhere around my math 160, 150 is going to be fine.
I usually tell people go per 1 pound of protein per gram because usually everybody falls short, and if they fall short, I was like, hey, we still got pretty close
That's a
to where
great
we
way.
need to
Yeah,
be. So
100%.
I can all work out.
And it depends who you're speaking to, right? Because if it's somebody that overeats protein, maybe undereats carbs, then me saying zero point 0.7 might be a little better. But yes, for you, if they're like way under, you put that target high. So you're right. If they do come up short, they're there. But I think it's kind of knowing where you really fall. And I am a proponent of tracking. I like it, not again for the restrictive nature, but the control nature of it gives you an awareness of, oh wow, I really am undershooting on protein, or oh, my fat is really high. So then you can tinker that, but you don't know if you don't measure
Yeah.
it.
And then with those measurements and give you answers to questions you might have, be like, oh, why am I so tired today? And then you're tracking, oh, well, I didn't have this, but I usually have, or why do I feel this way? And then you can see the numbers. I was like, okay, that didn't match up with this, what I usually have. So that's a nice thing about tracking too, is usually when the body feels questionable, it gives you the answers just by looking at the data you're providing yourself. And yeah, so it's very important that for most people, if you have the time, to set up a way where you can create a routine, as we call it, just for your meals, the way you eat with hopefully more efficiency, just so it can help you perform better throughout the day. And it's those little changes that really make the whole difference. It's
Yeah,
those
and
little
keep
things we
it
don't think
simple.
about.
Keep it
Mhm.
simple. Water, black coffee, and fresh brewed teas. That's it. You don't need to go crazy with these other drinks. You want to throw a little electrolytes in there, a little salt, great. But again, you want to parse through some of the marketing that people and I've seen these cupboards that they have just in the pantries with all the different colorful drinks or whatnot. It's like, what should I be drinking? It's like no one ever did poorly drinking a ton of water and more water than you think. A
Mhm.
lot of that's a big one. A lot of the people that we work with do not. You guys don't drink nearly enough water.
Mhm.
Get one of these. If you can't see it, I'm holding up a 40-ounce one of these reusable water bottles. I'll have
Yeah.
3 of these a day. It's like a lot of times you guys think you're tired, so you'll go and you'll get a cup of your third, fourth cup of coffee for the day, but you might just be very dehydrated. So
Yeah. If you need
if
a
you're not,
little flavor, you can do a little sparkling water.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all over.
but just keep it simple and just make sure you're drinking throughout the day. It's funny. It's the only push I can get on that is I got to go to the bathroom a little more. It's like yeah, so you get more steps. Like what's the big deal? Like, it's such a
That's good.
ridiculous pushback. Um, but you should be drinking water throughout the day, staying hydrated, and then single ingredient helpful whole foods split up throughout the day. I mean that's nutrition in a nutshell.
It
Nobody's ever
really
done
is.
that hasn't looked phenomenal. By the way,
Mhm.
everyone likes it, but again, guys, if we overcomplicate these things, then we give ourselves a little bit of a cop out as to why we're not following through with it. Oh, well, because it's like okay, just try this. I know it's boring or it
Mhm.
seems boring, but then all of a sudden food starts to taste better. Like a little bit of sea salt.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It really is good. So, and we can touch on this just to help a lot of our folks that travel a lot. But I
Mhm.
tell folks who were like, I like, even though I do think you can probably prep when you're away because you can go to all of these little kitchenettes. But if
Yeah.
you go out to a restaurant, what do I get? Just think lean, clean, green. Lean protein, clean burning carbohydrate,
Mhm.
and then fill the rest with some green vegetables, and you're good.
Yeah.
Maybe tell the waiter, not so much oil, and you're good. Like you just keep it simple. We don't have to make these things so Like, oh, I don't know what to eat, so I'm just gonna, get fried thing. It's like the people we work with are pretty smart.
Yeah.
They're pretty
Yeah.
smart. They know. So it's it's just sometimes we got to call a spade a spade.
Exactly. So, folks, you heard it here first from Matt and I. Hopefully, this information, this topic was very helpful to you guys. Again, if you have any questions about it, feel free to reach to us in the comments and we'll do our best to answer it as fast as we can. But other than that, that is today's episode of what nutrition should look like for business professionals that work in our corporate office and maybe those who even don't that just think this could help them out as well. Other than that, guys, we'll see you on our next episode that will be just as interesting as this one.